wasn't strain induced, I would send you to a headache specialist first. With it being strain induced, like the fact that we can generate the headache, you're going to be wasting your time to go to a headache specialist. They're not going to be able to help you. This is Chiari.
Okay. And that's what I was getting at.
There are a lot of patients who don't have occipital headache. They have frontal headache. It's not the textbook, but if you see enough of it, you know that's what it is. Now, is it 100%? No, but I mean, nothing with headaches is 100%. But it's really kind of the fact that, and why, even though a certain percentage of patients temporarily hate me from doing that exercise because it kind of brings on a headache, it really is the ability to make you uncomfortable with that to me is predictive of the fact that the symptoms are from that, and therefore that I can help you rather than my headache colleague. Because we don't want to operate on people that just have migraines, because our outcomes aren't good that way, right? Like, you do all these surgeries and everybody's unhappy with you because why did I go through this? I don't feel any better. And it really is that exercise, and the fact that you started by telling me swimming and laughing, but then when we said, what about coughing? What about sneezing? What about these other things? And you're like, yeah, no, that does. Those are all things that fit. That it kind of fits very well for Chiari being the etiology of the headache. And so that's why we need to get the spine MRI kind of to rule that out. But at the end of the day, it really is, how much are these headaches impacting your life? Because at the end of the day, I always say, in addition to kind of hating me initially after that exercise, there are a couple of days right around the surgery that I'm going to say that sometimes I'm not my patient's favorite person. But usually by follow-up, that's switched. Like, in the sense of that in the big picture, now they are happy because the symptoms are better. And so it really, the importance is how much do the symptoms bother you? Because if they're not that bothersome, then the hate doesn't turn to love. At the end, because we're not making you better.
Okay, that makes sense. So you would say let's do the spine MRI next?
Well, absolutely. I think you need the regardless of what you're thinking right now, the spine MRI is something that I would recommend.
Okay.
And I would have them. I'll write it and request a few additional sequences of the brain that they can just do on the cervical spine one to give us a little bit more info. Yeah, so I think that's important regardless. And what I would say is that gives you guys a little bit of time to think about it. And it's one of those things too where I think sometimes it's useful to live for a week or two after this discussion, because then that helps you get a sense of how much is it impacting you? Like, is it, how much are you getting the symptoms? Or even if you're not getting the symptoms, how much are you modifying what you're doing to avoid getting symptoms? Because I think that's, for quality of life, that's an important distinction too. You're 11, so you got a lot of life in front of you. If it's the type of thing that you say, okay, I can't do these 10 things for the rest of my life that I like doing because I know I'm going to get a headache if I do it. If you want to do those 10 things, then it probably makes sense to treat it. Because, in the big picture, then you're able to have a better quality of life because you're doing those things. I know obviously surgery can be a scary thing, but I think in the big picture, it's a short-term related to the surgery for a long-term benefit.
Mhm. Is it any easier or harder doing it at a younger age as opposed to older, the surgery itself, or it doesn't really? The pain is the pain.
I mean, obviously, I mean, I think from the perspective of, I think there's some things that are easier from the surgery perspective related to body habitus. So as a skinny child, it's a lot easier than my adults who are morbidly obese.
Yeah.
I think things like that, and obviously the surgery carries less risk when you have that, and so things like that. Otherwise, I think the reason to do it, earlier is just because you have more life to take advantage of the benefits of surgery.
Gotcha.
Or to avoid the risk of things getting worse. And again, if you were asymptomatic, I wouldn't talk about the risk of things getting worse. It's only because you have symptoms that I think that can weigh into your thought process.
Okay.
And was this like at
You
the?
don't have questions, Quinn?
Oh.
No. Sorry, go ahead.
This is in the back of the skull, or is it behind the ear on each side? Like it would be two different spots that would happen, or just in the back of the skull? It's hard to tell from the
No,
image.
it's where your skull meets your neck.
Okay.
So if you run your finger down the back of your head,
Uh-huh.
in the middle, you'll feel like a little bump. And then under that bump, it gets soft, where the muscle is.
Mm-hmm.
Where under that bump is where the skull is going away from you. So the surgery is under that bump.
Okay.
So usually the incision, if you feel that bump and then you run down your neck, the next bump you feel is C2. So the incision it's smaller than that, but the incision is between those two bumps.
Got it. Okay.
And you can't feel where we remove the bone because there's a thick layer of muscle that covers that. So there's not a risk of removing the bone and you're going to get hit there or something like that. It's deep. You can't feel that.
Okay.
So her head's not going to fall off or anything. She's going to be okay. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen that yet. So.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? No?
Okay. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to order, I think for this follow-up study, if you're able to, it's probably better to get it done at Hopkins. They have a Chiari protocol. You don't have to do it at the hospital. You can do it at like one of the satellites too, whether White Marsh, Green Spring, Columbia, whatever's convenient.
Okay.
But they actually have a Chiari protocol, so the spine MRI is a little shorter, so you can be in the tube a little less, because it's focused more on looking for what we're looking for than, I'm not expecting degenerative disease in your spine, so we don't need to do sequences to look for that. So what I'll do is I'll just put an order in the computer, and then you can just call Johns Hopkins Imaging and schedule for whenever's convenient for you. Like some of those places too do night ones, weekend ones, so you don't have to kind of miss stuff during the day. And then depending, I think what I would say up to you guys, if you just want to, me to call you with the result, or if you want to do another visit like this to kind of go over things a little bit more at length, review the imaging, etc. And what I would say is after you schedule your MRI, you can just call my office and let them know either way. If you want us to do another visit like this after, Shirley can just schedule it for you, or she can just tell me, call after the scan is done.
Okay. Great.
Sounds good.
All right?
All right. We appreciate your time, doctor. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
show the camera.
Well,
Pee my pants.